Here we are, Sainers. Thursday night, 6:30 every single week. I'm not Alana. She has the week off. I'm your host this week, Jake, on the teams for round 7 against the Brisbane Lions. I've got Ollie and Evan every single week as usual. First of all, we just want to thank Southside Pizza in Moorabbin, 474 in Moorabbin. They do some beautiful pizzas, South Road, just around the corner from RSEA. So if you go into the VFL on Saturday, they're right there. And then right after that, we'll be at Marvel. Boys, good to be here. Good to join you on the hit show of the channel. It's a pleasure.
Well,
thanks for joining in this week. It's good to have you on.
Yeah, not the best week for it, but we make work.
Yeah, I was going to say it's. I think Alana just needed the week off. She didn't want to deal with the comments this week, which is totally fair. I suppose it's worth getting straight into. The teams are out, and we can get our initial thoughts on it. As always, everyone watching at home, put your thoughts in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling about the teams. I've already had a text from Jaden. He is not happy, so already getting the personal DMs there. But boys. We'll start with Evan. What's your first thought on looking at the ins and the outs?
Yeah, it's probably not to the extent that we were hoping for, but we're still expecting a few back from injury in the next couple of weeks. So at least we can look forward to that and see if some of the senior players can get one more chance to prove their spot. I think having Dukes back in that back line is exactly what we need to a certain degree. Obviously, it won't stop how many forward entries these teams are getting against us, but having that older head there to give Wilkie a hand and be a bit more of a systems defense might be a step in the right direction for this season.
Yeah, like knowing Ross, I would have expected more wholesale changes, but he obviously trusts the players that are on the park enough, and maybe last week was just a blip on the radar. So hopefully the changes prove to be worth it, and that we don't regret not bringing in someone like Boxall. When there's already like 5 or 6 comments talking about Boxall and Harry Boyd to give Rowe a chop out, because in my opinion, he still looks underdone. He looks really sore. He hasn't been himself. So, hopefully that Dougal being back is massive. Frees up Caminiti potentially to go back to the forward line. Some good. We knew that there were going to be at least 2 guys coming in, so at least it's some tall timber, which we sorely missed in the last few weeks.
Tall timber, obviously is a major focus for us at both ends. It's forward and back, and obviously with Dougal Howard back, I can see that Caminiti is listed in the forward line. Before we get into each section of the ground, just your thoughts. Do you think it's beneficial to start him forward and have a target, or do you think that's still a bit of a risk with, I guess, the firepower of Brisbane?
They do have a significantly tall backline, or at least the sort of pillars of Payne and Andrews can't be overlooked there. Definitely felt that before we get too much into the forwards, when we were transitioning it down the ground, we weren't putting enough sort of responsibility on their defenders. So Lobb or Jones could just play up the ground, be that intercepting force, because to a certain degree, whilst Sharman and Owens have put up great performances, they have to prove it every single week. Whereas having, as much as his injury has been an issue, having King up there is a threat that forces them to defend to a certain degree. So having that extra tall number, having 3 up there potentially, whether that's Keeler or Caminiti, might just mean that there's a bit more responsibility on their back line, and it isn't just a repeat of the interception game we just had.
I think that, as well, having Caminiti available to swing back if we need, because they do have a tall forward line, like I'm sure we'll speak about, but also because Dougal Howard hasn't played, and other than match him at training, he wouldn't have played a game since he got injured. So just to be able to give him a chop out if he needs to go to the bench for a while, or if their tools are sort of quite strongly beating our defenders, just to be able to, take some pressure off Wilkie and Dukes for a little bit, and Keeler can hold it down up forward.
Yeah. Now we'll go to the outs. Ari Shawnmaker and Liam Henry. I wouldn't say they're the biggest statement type droppings that we've ever seen. Probably fair. Although I'll be honest with you boys and the listeners at home, I don't like when we bring in players one week and they're both out the next week, because that to me already gives me a feeling that one, they weren't ready, or two, it was a mistake or the wrong game to bring it in which case that's the coaching and that's the selection staff doing that. Do you think that's fair on them? Do you think Liam Henry was rushed back even? Because I was there live and he didn't have a spring in his step. He didn't look ready. He looked dejected when they subbed him off. I just thought, even last week, it could have been a good game for Boxall. It's not like he's only had one good game. He's dominated every single VFL game. We'll talk about him a little bit more, but what are your thoughts on the outs?
Yeah, I think Henry is definitely a misplay there. I don't think there's, in a way, any way you can look that it's not. So he hadn't proved in the VFL any more than Boxall had that he deserved that sort of space. And while they're both sort of firecracker players, he clearly wasn't in the form for it. So I can understand him being out, just needing some more time in the twos. To me, it's Ari that's pretty disappointing to see him bounce in and out of the team there. He didn't necessarily prove enough to keep that spot. But there were plenty of players as well who didn't stand up, and he needs some consistent play. We had too much with Collard and Hasty last year, just jumping in and out of the team, and it just doesn't help their confidence. So he, in my mind, wasn't the biggest issue, but I suppose we've got Dukes back, so it is suitable at the least.
Yeah, I think that what you say about consistency is really important, considering he played run of 3 games, I think, last year, and then got dropped. It doesn't do well for his confidence, one. Two, it shows that he was only brought in to play a specific role, which he's not needed for this week. So if he's not needed for the role, then I suppose it makes him as a player and a person a bit like, well, what am I doing trying to fight my way into the team if I'm being brought in for one specific thing and getting dropped again the week after? And for Henry, I think definitely underdone, but at the same time, for a player of his caliber to only have one disposal in a half of football is quite disappointing, regardless of injury or not. I think he still was disappointing. If you look away from the recovery time that he had on his injury from last year, still the pressure, like you spoke about, Jay, just didn't look like he was ready for it at all. Didn't look like he wanted to be there.
Yeah, and that disappointingly is a great segue into talking about the midfield first of all, but obviously talking about a major talking point during the week. And I was going to ask, were there any players that you were surprised weren't dropped? Maybe we can come back to that. But our captain, Jack Steele, Ross said today in his presser that he's 100% fit. So I've seen Jack Steele for many years. We all have. And I'm telling you now, last week, he did not look 100% fit. He did not look anywhere near it. And I argue Rowan Marshall is exactly the same. So, if they're both fit, we both know it's just severe, out of form, and we've not seen that from them. Midfield-wise this week, it doesn't get any easier for us. We've had a stiff run of playing some stacked midfields in the last week. Port, Giants, Dogs, Brisbane, Fremantle, and then Carlton, if you don't mind. Probably 6 of the top 8 midfields in the competition. What were we I say what were we lacking last week, but we were lacking everything, let's face it. How can we turn this around? It's more above the shoulders stuff, surely more than tactical this week.
Well, if Ross is saying they're fit, then it's clearly just, are they mentally prepared for where we're at right at the moment? And I definitely felt that this was the most senior midfield we've probably had all year. We didn't have Toby running through there, at least to start off the game. We had some senior players in there, and whether it's just because McRae and Steele aren't working together as a pairing, maybe the short preseason just means Marshall's not quite at sort of 2024 form. It's just not working as a combination, and so many of these teams have brilliant trios to start the game at least. Brisbane Lions definitely being one of those. So hopefully, if it all is above the shoulders, Steele and McRae can work out how to work together, how to be that Batman and Robin in the middle. can we keep Garcia having the impact that he's having there? Is Jones the player that we need right now, or do we need to be investing more elsewhere? Because I think that's probably where it's most disappointing to see a lack of change. Is our midfield was definitely beat last week, and we haven't punished or adapted that in any way. So if there's any positive, I think Neil has been tagged really effectively this year in multiple games. So Windy going to him could definitely be suitable. Obviously, that was Windy's big breakout game, and I think Neil's in some lacking form. Maybe we can have a more suitable game and really show up, but it certainly doesn't fill you with confidence before the game.
No, and like you could see at the start of the game, the first 5 or 10 minutes, we came out firing. Ball movement was quick, strong. It was very free flowing, and then for whatever reason, the Bulldogs had a little bit of a run, and it's just like they went, "Oh, that's it. We've put in our effort. That's all we can give it now." And I think it's quite telling in that we know what Jack Steele's capable of, but I think it might be. We speak about it periodically, once or twice a year about him and the captaincy, and I think that it's just he's not vocal enough on field, so he is a lead by example sort of player, and when he's out of form, he really struggles. So then the spotlight's on him because he's the captain, and the fans are talking about him, and we speak about him in this way, not overly negatively, but there's still more of a spotlight on him than normally. So I think even if he shares it with Wilkie, more of a co-captaincy instead of a captain, vice-captain, give Wilkie a little bit more power in the group, I think it's probably necessary to do that sort of thing, or to bring more people. We've got a smaller leadership group this year. Bring more people into the leadership group to assist Steele so he doesn't have to be the main leader every week.
Yeah, I don't know where it was. Oh, it was the Cozzy interview last night, which was brilliant, by the way, if you haven't seen it. Yep. But they had a flashback to the 06 elimination final loss to Melbourne, and it was Captain Luke Ball coming off the ground, and he was in tears in an elimination final, in tears. And it just gives you that feeling of like, who's that next crop of players that literally will cry after a loss, that hate losing, like hate it. I mean, I love the bloke, but I didn't even like Higo giggling with Sam Darcy after the siren on the bench, walking off the bench to the players. Like, I didn't like that. I know we want to be promoting just being yourself, and Higo's that type of guy, but, on one front, Ross is saying we want to be a serious club, we want to be winners, and then on the other front, we're having players giggle after a 70-point loss. Like, I'm not all for that. Who's in line, do you think, to be that next leader? Is Cal Wilkie the logical choice? Not to say, it'll ever change, but hypothetically speaking.
When you say, cry for the club, the sort of thing, my mind instantly went to Mateus Filippo. Not sure why, because he's still quite a young player, but he just gives that. You see his passion whenever he kicks a goal. He always flexes and does He seems like he yells quite loudly when he kicks a goal.
Points to the badge every single time.
He loves it because they showed the faith in him to pick him up. Because from memory, he was supposed to go higher, and a lot of teams passed on him. Mm-hmm. So we've shown the faith, and he's ready to repay that. Obviously, maybe not quite yet. I still think Rowan Marshall's a good candidate. He always leads by example, and he seems like the kind of guy that you would want around your club more than anyone else, because he always gives 100%, whether he's injured or not. He's still he is clearly playing underdone now and has done in the past, and plays almost every week, almost a full game. So I think Wilkie is the main candidate at the moment, but in terms of the future, I think Rowan and Pooh, and obviously we've got a lot of young guys who can fill the rest of the leadership group.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's been seconded in the chat a couple of times there, but I reckon Filippo probably only needs 2 years, I'd say, in the tank in the league. So if it was me, I'd get Wilkie, that captaincy, sort of co-captain, full captain for the next 2 years. Get 3 years as a group into Windy, Filippo, Owens, Garcia, Toby, and suddenly you're going into 2027 with captain Matthias Filippo, and that's the kind of energy that can really expect, hard on your sleeve. I don't think we can really take too much away from just how tough, both mentally and on the ground, the Dogs were. And if there's one thing, if the one reason why I think Steele isn't doing the captain's job right now is that when Darcy went down, Bontempelli grabbed everyone and went, I know it's my first game back, but we're going to win this game. And he grabbed them by the scruff of the neck and just on his shoulders, was it 3 goals, 30-odd disposals, first game back, and just he was the quintessential captain, and you can't take that away from him. So I just don't know if I've seen Steele in that same way, despite his actions around the club. I don't know if I've ever seen him grab a game by the scruff of the neck and just drag us over the line. I've seen Wilkie do that. I've seen him stand up, be that brick wall, and say, you're not scoring on me today, and we're going to win this. So that to me in my head is just how they'd fit better on field in those roles.
Yeah, good points. And I think maybe that's why we haven't seen that many changes in the midfield this week. Who's to say Ross didn't get the midfielders from last week in a room, watch the highlights of what they did wrong and go, I'm not going to drop any of you because I want you all to back it up this week against the reigning premier. Like there's no bigger kick up the arse, I think, than putting them out in front of 25,000 Saners under enormous pressure to deliver against one of the best teams in the comp coming off a loss. Well, how much do you learn dropping a Steele or a McRae or a Garcia into the VFL who will then dominate when you could put them up against the best in the comp and say, all right, get to work. That's the ultimate sort of warning to me is if you don't deliver this week, that's when the blowtorch gets put on.
Yeah. And they've still only, as a group, had 6 games together. As McRae, Steele and Garcia, if you want to name that as the main 3, or Windy even, no matter how you put it, there's 6 to 20 games as a unit. So they do still need to work together in that way, but it's just, are they showing promise as that form?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, moving to the forward line, which to me weirdly hasn't been a major issue up until maybe the last couple of weeks. Although it was looking last week early on, at least from my perspective, we had 5 inside 50s for 4 goals won. You cannot ask for much more of a return on that front. But disappointingly for the rest of the game, I think up until from the 20-minute mark of the first to the end of the game, we had maybe 20 more inside 50s, boys. 20 more. You're not winning a single game of football against anyone, no matter how bad they are, if you're having 20 inside 50s and 37 less. So the inside 50 count obviously was to do with losing the ball in the guts, but when it gets there, we're up against Harris Andrews, who notably loves to play us, and Payne as well, who's excellent in the air. Yeah. What's the plan this week?
I feel like our forward line, it's almost the same as 2023. As much as it's been undermanned, we're still finding ways to stand up, and there's still guys that are putting in 100% every week and doing really well, playing their roles. Like I remember at one stage, might have been second quarter, the inside 50s were like something like 40 to 14, but we'd had 10 scoring shots. So when we were getting it in there, we were being productive and the forwards were doing their job, but we couldn't. It was up the ground that we were getting beaten. So and Sharman missed three early on, or 2 early on and 1 later in the game, something like that. So, if we take those opportunities, the game can look slightly different. So I think for them, knowing how it's gone in the past, so like Higgins, Owens, Sharman, Caminiti were all around in 2023 when we had that undermanned forward line. They know that they just have to compete. And if they bring the ball to ground, it gives everyone else a chance and we can score through other avenues than just bombing it on the head of Max King, like we know that has been done in the past. So to be honest, I'm not too worried about the forward line. As long as they can compete, we've scored high scores this year. It's really a non-issue, to be honest.
Yeah, and just to add to that, last fun fact, because I love my stats from the games, Bulldogs were going inside 50. Their scoring efficiency was 47%. Guess what ours was? Let's do some trivia. Guess what ours was, Sanus? Hey?
65. 65.
56.
Oh, yeah. Closer. 58. So we were 11% more efficient when we got it in there. It's just that we didn't get it in there. So on that, like what you just said, Ollie, it's not really a major worrying point at the moment. It's probably not even a worrying point. I think up until 2 weeks ago, the fourth highest scoring team. He goes third in the Coleman, and that's all without a Caminiti down there. I think having a Hammer or a Keeler down there is going to make us 10 times better. We are 0-3 without Keeler, and we are 3-0 with Keeler, irrespective of him losing. And Sandy's exactly the same. They're 1 win or 2 wins from him playing, and there's 0-3 when he's not playing. So Keeler in a team gets the job done, irrespective of what he does.
Brownlow this season is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying he frees up. I mean, that'd be nice. He frees up the likes of Owens and Sharman. They're not number ones.
No.
They're just number 2s and 3s in that hierarchy. They are not number 1. So if Keeler plays and he plays forward this week, I'm trying to think of who the like-for-like matchup would be. He wouldn't take I think Andrews probably goes to Sharman, or Sharman goes to Andrews as like almost a tag, like a forward tag.
Because Sharman's often playing up on that wing a little bit deeper, so I'd imagine Andrews would sort of follow him up to that half-back line, and then Payne would stay back with Keeler. But
and along with
me, that's... Oh, you go.
Sorry, no, you go. You keep going.
Yeah. Sort of in my head, the most important point for Keeler is that anchor role in the forward line. I can't say I had the strength to do a rewatch, but I just felt like last week, when we were getting possession and making a forward entry, it was actually largely because we had the extras around the ball. We had Sharman or Owens approaching that contest on the wing. And then suddenly you don't have a forward line, and we weren't sprinting back. We didn't have Henry running back to goals like his life depended on it. So even when you're getting that possession on the wing and get a forward entry, you've got no forward line. So having Keeler there as a pillar, him and Jack Payne just ready to bring the ball down in a contested possession, that just means we can hold in, we can do our repeat entries rather than overfilling the wing, a really poor entry to no one, and then they just bounce back and get a score off half-back.
Yeah, and on top of that, with the amount of times we've said we don't want to see Mitch Owens playing backup ruck,
Yes,
you couldn't count it. Like him playing, Keeler playing, not only frees up Mitch to go up the ground a little bit and be a bit more aggressive, it also frees him up to not go into the ruck, and then he plays his sort of mock key forward role for 5 or 6 minutes while Keeler's rucking. And it works a lot better. It flows better with the rotations and the matchups rather than undersized Mitch Owens playing on their second ruck, who's probably a tall forward like Keeler is. So it just works better structurally as well.
And it helps Rowe. We can't forget, it's going to help Rowe. It's going to give him a chop out around the ground. If there's a way to get him back to his best, it is resting him forward a little bit, because I feel like he's just getting burnt out. Like, no wonder we're looking at TDK. The guy's getting burnt out. He's number 1 ruck. He's trying to do everything. I think it's just going to support him even more. I think it makes us more dangerous if we have someone like Rowe that can rest forward and have Keeler do that chop out in the ruck.
Well,
it's no wonder why we were successful in 2020 when we had Paddy Ryder. They swapped between ruck and forward, and we finished like 6 on the ladder and made the semi-final. It just works better when you have someone who's a more proven, not necessarily more proven second ruck, but is stronger in competition in the ruck and can still go in for a quarter if they need to, if the other person got injured, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just because you mentioned TDK, do you reckon we're the club, particularly if we picked him up, do you reckon we're the club with the most rucks on our list and the fewest played? Because we've got Heath, Keeler, Marshall, is it Dodson just came through? Boyd.
Dodson, yep.
We picked up TDK. That's 6 rucks.
And yet we're small, and yet we're one of the shortest teams every week. Who would have thought? It's ridiculous. First of all, I was kind of keen to see Moose get a game this week. I thought quietly that he was a little chance to finally make that long-awaited debut. He's kicking ass in the VFL. So if he's watching or his family's watching, shout out. Big fan. Hopefully soon we get to see him because he's working his ass off. And he's building nicely. His tank, everything. He's working on himself, and hopefully he gets a gig at some point. But
he doesn't become a Matt Allison type who just never got a game.
Yeah, and we've had too many of those types, to be honest. That it's good if you make a call pretty early. But he's been around for what, 5 years, 6 years, even on the list.
Sure,
2018 or something.
Even on the coldest way, just as trade value, there are plenty of clubs looking for a 23-year-old ruck, but they've never seen him unless they're scouting VFL.
Yeah, 100%. Let's move to the back line now. This is going to be interesting, I feel, because Dukes is back. This is huge. I think we talk about Wilkie being underrated and undervalued. I think Dukes in the last year, I think last year actually had a very good year when he played and helped us big time in the back half when we made that run before his injury. Him being back now, can we all just take a little breather, or is it not going to be that easy of an introduction?
It's not going to be easy against their sort of three bigs. They're strong forwards there. Even Morris being a young one, but he kicks goals in finals. He's good.
Yeah.
And Sam Day's a big second ruck, so he'll do the job. But to me, the most important thing is he just brings a bit more structure to our back line. Him and Wilkie, they've got experience together. They can work together. And Dougal, he's always been a funny one because he'll make a great contest. He'll get a good intercept mark and then be rubbish with the ball. But I think he learnt his lesson last year and was using Naz and he was using Sinclair. And if you take away his bad ball use, suddenly you're left with a really good one-on-one defender. And I think I'd like to keep Caminiti down back so that Dougal and Camo can be that 1 and 2 as far as shutting down Sam Day and Hipwood, and just give Wilkie the opportunity to have a bit more run off ball and work on the structure, bark orders, not be worried about his direct man. So I think this might just provide a bit of system that we've been missing the last couple of weeks while we've had a lot of individual kids. It's Robbo.
Robbo, mate,
I saw him
welcome.
at the footy on the weekend. He was down in Inverloch watching the footy.
Oh, was he? Did he have a ciggy?
No, he was just standing there. I couldn't see if he had a beer or a cigarette, but he was just hanging out in Inverloch for some reason. So random.
Yeah, what a legend. Sorry, bit of a distraction there.
Don't worry, I got distracted too.
What was I going to say now? It was just complete dysfunction last week. Like, no matter, even when Darcy was on, you could see that Wilkie was having to do a lot to come over and help. Which Sam Darcy is one of the tallest players, especially forwards going around. So he's tough to defend. But at the same time, it's not just on the defenders one-on-one. It's about the rebound 50s. And our exits weren't that great either, considering how many inside 50s they had. So that's on our halfbacks and our mids to do better at not necessarily clogging up the space, but holding the ball up and not letting them just send it back in. But just the presence of Dougal is not, I won't say it's calming, but having a experienced fullback in the team is a lot better for your Burns, your Windhager if he goes half back, your Nasiah, even Jack Sinclair, knowing that he's going to be there and you've got someone more experienced to defend with you, probably helps a lot.
It's balance. That's what it brings. It's balance. Even if you've got the best medium-sized players in the comp, you need pillars at either end. You need pillars. You need a good ruck or a great ruck. You need a good forward or a great forward, full forward, and then you need a full back that can take the gorillas. And for how long has it been? We haven't had a big forward. King's been out forever, and we've had to make do. And then you lose Dukes, and you have to try and shuffle and turn Wilkie into a fullback when he's not, and he's more that floating support type. And then players have too many things to do, and that's when your wires can be crossed, and you're like, oh, is Hammer the number one backman? Is he going to take the big gorilla? Or is it Wilkie? And then on-field confusion, like we said, and then teams capitalize like the Dogs did, especially if they're having 800 inside 50s.
Yeah. And there's a comment, I don't know if you could bring it up from Corey.
Yep.
It's, I think it's the most recent one.
Yeah.
I noticed that a lot, that Naz was playing higher up on the wing, sort of not inside 50, but half forward. And I was kind of confused considering he's still quite slight framed and we know how dangerous he is off half back. So if he's more half back wing, I think he's more dangerous than half, like sort of wing half forward. I was a little bit
in the
confused.
guts too. He was in the guts. Like at the bounces.
I don't know if that was Ross just sort of not clutching at straws, but just trying to change something up or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't. This time was. Oh, you go.
No, you go, Evan. It's all good.
Yeah. I think this time it was definitely him just throwing the pieces wherever. But I think it's a double-edged sword because obviously our one wood was being able to score really rapidly off half-back last year. And that was a real strength. But that forward half scoring was where we really dropped away. So we do have the benefit of having Sinclair and Naz there. And if you can have one running off sort of the half forward wing line, getting the forward scores, and then the other one off half back, getting the back line scores, that's two sides of the team that we haven't seen historically. I don't know if this was the week where that was really going to make impact because obviously we weren't getting those scores from the back line anyway. So you still need to conserve your strength while trying to develop as a team.
And we last year, and I mean even this year early on, we've been one of the best teams of getting the ball from back to front and scoring quickly. I think we're top 6 at one point, probably not anymore. And then just adding to that point from, I think centre bounce last week scores or stoppage scores was 2 goals, 2 each. Who would have thought? I mean, at least when I saw it late in the fourth, that's when the stat popped up on the screen, and I was staggered that they were level. So it was just around the ground domination and turnovers that we couldn't capitalise on, but the Dogs could. So we know Brisbane are one of the highest scoring teams in terms of turnover. So we're going to have to be switched on when we do pull that kick and it doesn't pay off. We're going to have to be set up behind the ball better than we have been probably this year.
Yeah, and on top of that, also, it's like I don't think I've seen Rowan Marshall get that badly beaten by another ruck in a long time. So that doesn't help the midfield mix around the ground because if Rowan's not competing as well and winning, then it's, Libba, Bond, Richards are getting first use of the ball. So that, that also doesn't help.
Yeah, and Corey's just mentioned here, Naz he's got a jacket waiting for him for a half-back position. Yeah. We don't need to be messing around. I don't want to get seduced by the fact that he can play everywhere. Play him in his best position and just let him cook there. There are other players that can go into the guts and do pretty much the same job that he might do there. But we don't have players of his caliber that can go and replace him in the back half. So good points there from Corey.
There are other players that we can expect more from to be that forward connection role. We can expect more from Burns. We can expect a little bit more from Wood, and obviously the main midfielders there. There's no need right now to expect more from Naz because he's already giving plenty for the team, even if it's not like last week where he's kicking 3 goals as well, just to top it off.
Yeah. Before we get into the Oppo view, I love that is now the segment name. I just want to get everyone's thoughts on who is under the most pressure this week. Who's Ross got the microscope on? Who is he analysing harder than anyone? Is it the senior? To me, it's probably a group of the senior players, more so than one particular player, but I wanted to get your thoughts before we move into Brisbane.
I might chuck out 2. So, Ollie, did you want to go first? I don't want to steal one of yours.
Okay. I was going to go with Bradley Hill. Now,
there we go.
I said lightly around Bradley Hill because I've been a big fan of him in the past. There's been a lot of Bradley Hill bashes going around the last few years, and I haven't been one of them. But he's gone from one of our, better leaders on field, solid senior player, still providing us with a lot, just someone who looks like he's just completely out of it this year. From the Adelaide game in round one to the last couple of weeks, he just doesn't get his hands on the ball. He's not as confident with the ball. He's not running like he used to. So I'm hoping it's a form thing and it's not just him aging as a player and it's becoming more difficult because, I've heard interviews with him and he speaks a lot about how regimented he is with his fitness. So I'd hope it's not that or he's not carrying an injury. But for one of our senior players to have been performing so poorly across the first 6 weeks quite consistently, it's quite a worry.
Yeah. He was definitely one of the ones I wanted to mention because in no universe should Libba be able to chase down Brad Hill.
No.
To a certain degree, I don't know why Brad tried to fend him off because there's every universe where Libba tackles through a fend off.
I was going to say, you're rolling a rope out the window. You're doing Goldilocks' hair to get the prince to come up. Why are you putting the arm out so he can grab it? Yep. Once he grabs that arm, how are you supposed to handball or kick?
Yep.
Like, use your brain, Brad. Like,
Brad wasn't, so he should have just...
You're not dusty. You're not dusty. You're not doing a fend.
No. Yeah, that was just weird. So we've already had a couple games where he's been not ready or not in the right mindset. But I'll throw out another one we were sort of talking about beforehand is Jimmy Webster. It's a tough one with him because who comes in to really take his spot? You've got potentially McLennan, you've got potentially Hasty, but it's not really a like for like. So, but at the moment, he's not deserving the second chance right at the moment. I saw that many tackles where he just missed the man altogether. And that's his one thing. He's not a kick a goal from 16 meters out. He's not a clean ball user that's going to get the rebound. He is stop their small forward from scoring or stop their medium forward from scoring. And he's not doing that right at the moment. So I think at this stage, if he doesn't do a number on Rayner or Charlie Cameron, I think we just have to risk it with one of the kids.
Yeah, that's a big week this week, that's for sure. And we'll move into Oppo View now. Brisbane, I think they're second on the ladder moving into this game. I think their form. Are we all getting a little bit, a bit panicky because of our form and thinking they're just going to rock up and belt us? Because I've watched them more than most other teams this year, and they've trailed significantly in every single game. Not even a joke. They've been down in their first 5. They won them all, but they were down. They were lucky to beat the Dogs, 40 down pretty much. And then they play a team in Collingwood who's in red-hot form at the Gabba, who get the jump on them again, except Collingwood are mature enough to really not give Brisbane a sniff at all. And they get the win, and Brisbane obviously get their first loss of the year. Is their form any better or worse than ours going into this? I know it's a bit crazy to say because they're 5-1, but they've been down in a lot of games. We can capitalize on this if we start well.
I definitely wanted to jump onto that because they're the other team coming off last week that had a massive loss sort of thing, and it was a sizable one. They only kicked 7 goals for the entire game, which is an us score. So to a certain degree, this is the right time to be coming up against them. We'll see if it's the kind of game where they really make a showing of it and recover. But Fagan is not a happy coach at the moment. They're not playing to the standard that they could be playing all throughout the year. So I am excited in a way to see if we can keep their forwards quiet. 7 goals, we can match that sort of thing. And if we can keep them to that sort of quiet stage, and if Windy can have a real go at Lockie Neal, I think this is the right time to be playing them. They're not as scary potentially, and I hope Ross shows them that game. I hope Ross shows them Collingwood dismantle that team at home, because that could potentially bring some energy to a team that's just been beaten poorly. That we're in for a good fight.
Yeah, it's a worry that, we talk about as St Kilda fans. Oh, great, Bonson, of course he's back against us. It's almost the same like, oh, great, they've just been smashed and we've got them next week. It's just one of those things that seems to happen. And being a premiership team, you know that they've got the class, and that's what worries me the most. That regardless of us starting well, I think West Coast were up by almost 40 points on them in the first couple of weeks, and they still came back and won. So, regardless of whatever lead we may have, it's not safe until the game ends. So they've just got enough class around the ground. Whereas, like, even if say Lockie Neal's not playing well, they've got McCluggage, they've got the two Ashcrofts, they've got Bailey, they've got Zorko, they've got Berry, they've got so many guys that can run through the midfield and just pick up the slack. Whereas I feel like they're a lot more proven than our guys are. If we're struggling, we don't have as many of those, not second string guys, but guys that'll be able to cover and, rest someone forward or on the bench or something like that. Though our guys that do that sort of role are less proven and less, I can't say less skilled because that's not true because they're AFL players, but they're less likely to turn a game than, say, one of those Brisbane players are. So that worries me a lot. And I feel like if we go into that lull like we did last week, that we could just get blown out of the water, similar to how we did against them last year at Marvel.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can't be playing this game in our shells. We can't be panicky. We can make mistakes. Every team makes mistakes. Brisbane, right up there in terms of clangers per game. It's amazing that people think that all these top teams and top players don't make mistakes. They do, and that's how they pull off some of these kicks, and that's how you open up the game. Naz going through the guts. He'll turn one over. He nails 5 of them. They're direct scores for us. We need to play aggressive. We've got to play on the front foot because I think we're not good enough to invite pressure. Like, our defense is good, but we cannot be happy to bomb it outside when they've kicked a point and then have them have 6 or 7 repeat entries because they're going to score. They're going to score from it. We need to play, I think Ross says it all the time, but we need to have a field position in this game more than them. We need it in our front half more than their front half. We don't look at the heat maps. We can't have it like it was with the Dogs. I think it was 70% of the game was in their forward half from the centre.
Yeah.
That's not how you win games. Is there a strength in our game plan at our best? Because we've seen some good football this year. Let's not pretend that and forget that we've lost every game. We're 3-3. The season is alive. We are at home. We're playing in Melbourne for the next 4 weeks. There's plenty to play for. What's our major strength that maybe can exploit the Lions? And what is the Lions' biggest weakness?
I think you'll find if you watch the highlights of probably our 2 best wins, Geelong, Port Adelaide, 2 prelim final teams from last year, there's a lot of short hit-ups, more in the forward half of the ground, and it's a lot more unpredictable going forward. And like I spoke about earlier with the 2023 side that went into the finals with the makeshift forward line for most of the year, it makes the guys who are maybe on the fringe. So you've got the Brisbane defense is a bad example because they're all quite proven and good players, but it makes Answorth, Wilmot and Leicester and Zorko even more accountable for their players. So if you're hitting up short leads and you're unpredictable and you've got leading patterns that drag someone into space and then back out again, then you're less, as a defense, you're less reliant on, Payne and Andrews, they'll get up and they'll punch it or they'll be able to contest because we've got Mitch Owens and Sharman who have been our 2 key forwards hitting up on short leads. So then they don't know how to defend us, which, I don't know, I feel like it could be applied to most teams. It's a shame that Brisbane have such a solid defense. But I think that's our best way. Just move the ball, keep the ball in our hands and take not always the safe option. You eventually have to bite one off, but you take the safe option, chip, handball, kick, short kick, and then find the most open player. No matter if he's on the boundary, that's fine. You have to find the open player a lot of the time in the forward line because just having a multitude of set shots or opportunities at goal, you'll kick goals, you will score.
Yeah, I definitely think that our best games we've had between 9 to 11 scorers because we've been hitting up those small kicks, we've been looking forward and not just hitting a single target for the entire game. Like, I'm sure that'll happen plenty this week with them going straight for Hipwood or straight for Day, whereas we've been really clean at times at spotting up a number of targets and then holding it in. But I think secondly, what my favourite thing that game style has done for us is mean they're responsible for their players, and it opens up the skinny side of the ground. So my favourite plays the whole year has been a long kick from the back line out to Darcy Wilson, who's just bolts down the skinny side of the ground whilst everyone else is sort of underprepared. And we're able to get a really rapid entry that way. And that sort of combination of the two, between really clean movement just down the ground slowly without the long bombs, but then also the ability to run and carry and just get it down the ground. And they are a quick team, but they've also got a lot of height that they're dealing with. So I reckon that fast game style, we could potentially sort of surprise them and make sure they don't really know where we're going with that. But as part of that, we need players fully committed. We need a whole team that's fully committed to getting back forward, to staying them, and to that extensive pressure that we were just nowhere near last week. So we need a full team effort, because they've got players that go missing regularly. You know, Cam Rayner was one of my least favourite Supercoach players last year, because he'd have a 120-point game and then you wouldn't see him for 4 weeks. You know, you've got Zorko, who just got pissed off and started yelling at his coach last week. You've got all sorts of players that sometimes just don't show up, and we need a full team effort to show that it's not just about, you know, starry players and Brownlow medalists. Like it's a full team effort, both for pressure and for transition.
Yeah. Do you, before we get into the tips for the game, do you read much into the fact that they played on the Thursday and we played on the Sunday night? To me, that's crazy fixturing, because they've pretty much got 9 days off and we've got 6 or whatever it is. But surely we can't be using that as an excuse. Or is that much of a gap a significant advantage?
Not for a Saturday game. I don't know if there's that much of a difference for is that a 9-day break compared to a 6? Like, it's not pleasant, but it's not like you're coming off a 5-day break between games there, or so I don't think you're allowed a 4-day, but that's when it's absurd.
That's what I was going to say. If it was a Friday, I'd be a bit like, you know, hey, AFL, that's a bit, you know, check this out. It's a bit unfair. But considering they get an extra night, or like, you know, they get a day, they probably won't train on the Friday. I wouldn't have thought, maybe a captain's run. But then you have that night's sleep in your own bed at home, and then you can wake up and play an earlier game. I feel like that's beneficial. But yeah, it's probably here nor there.
Before we get into the tips, just quickly, everyone, just putting up this week's Friends of Fire offer. Screenshot this. You have to show this when you get there a couple hours before the game. It's a 1:20 game. Get there between 11 and 12 to redeem this. Like I said, screenshot it. They're a sponsor of the channel this year, and they've been awesome, and the venue's pretty amazing and awesome food. So perfect early game. Brekkie Burger, nice brunch spot. Get to Marvel Gate 3 and enjoy. All right. Dare I ask for everyone's tips and margins before we wrap up?
I think I'm the only one that's not tipped St Kilda before. I think I tipped Adelaide, so I've probably got the best results so far. I'm going to specifically say Lions by 2 goals, but only because we didn't make some of the changes I think that maybe could have re-energized us. So I'm going to throw it back onto the selection panel. And say, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong that this is the team that deserves another shot, sort of thing. That Boxall doesn't deserve a go. That Hasty doesn't deserve a go. And we'll see if they show up this week.
I think you've got a good mindset in, like, you don't have the blind optimism that I do, and I just pick us every single week, no matter what. But you're like, prove me wrong. Like, you know, get me up and about, prove us all wrong. In saying that, I wrote in the old run sheet, I said Brisbane probably win, but Saints by 14 anyway. Just cause Saints by 14. No, I think that's a good margin. If we were to get up and our guys stand up, I think it'll be a close game. I'll go Sharman 4 goals this week. That's my big call.
I want to be watching the game and be thinking to myself, gee, I'm an idiot. If that happens, then we will be doing good.
See, I'm the opposite of Wooden Spoon Data. He says if Brizzy win, it'll be by less than 2 goals. I think if we win, it's going to be less than 2 goals, and if they win, it's going to be more than 6 goals. I think if it's a shootout, Brisbane Brisbane will get the cake. But if we can hold it to a tight game, keep both teams, if it's a 70 to 80 type affair, I think that's where we can start to believe. But if they've kicked over 60 points in a half and they're on track for 120, we got some problems. The halftime score always kind of is indicative of the rest of the game, I think.
Absolutely. I'm going to change my big call quickly. I've just seen Corey say he go for 3+. End of the week, he go leading the Coleman. That's my big call.
How many does he need? How many does he need?
He's two behind.
He's two behind.
I think 2 or 3 behind. So you'd have to kick a bag.
He's only 1 behind, but obviously Ben King's the 1 fewer game. So he goes at 17, Ben King and Tracy at 18. But
there you go. Higo leads the Coleman after this week, not the Brownlow.
Yeah, that'd be huge. We need this. If we can get up this week and then we lead into a Friday night against Fremantle and Spud's game Friday night against the Blues, we can start to, I don't know, I'd say believe, but we can just enjoy ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, I'd take 3 and 3. It's just a matter of how some of the losses have happened, and that maybe we're not giving the kids a go. But 3 and 3 is nothing to scoff at.
No, I think percentage is a very good indicator as well of where teams are at, and no team is under 100 in the top 8, and we are, I think, 95, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head, or something like that, around the low 90s. So we're pretty much 90 now. There you go. So, if we get if the Ross Lions beat us by 87 points, we're going to be in a world of pain, and that percentage is going to need work. My tip, I'll go Saints by 1. It's going to be a repeat of 04, Troy Schwartz style long bomb. I would say it would have been Ari, but he's omitted. So let's go with Jack Higgins snaps and it hits the post, and we win by a point. I'm really sugarcoating. Yeah, we're not in. Let us have fun. Let us have fun, everyone. All right, we're no threat right now.
We're delusional.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up, guys?
It'll be an exciting game, if not just because the Premiers they're a good side.
They're a good side, but or we'll be really sad.
Actually,
Yep.
Fantastic jersey, if nothing else.
Oh yes, Anzac round. Yes, absolutely.
Incredible.
Yeah, you can't be losing in that. Like, you really can't. It is. Yeah. Our merch team is next level.
On fire. Absolutely
next level. Corey's loving it. All right, mate, you can join Slobbo. He'll be there. On that note, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thanks to Southside as well and Friends of Fire for the support on the weekend. Thanks to Ollie and Evan for joining. Melbourne Richmond coming up in about 6 minutes. I have crazily tipped Richmond, so let's go Tigers. Nice. Let's get the job done.
Don't mind it.
And we'll see you next week. But take care and go Saints.
Go Saints.
Go Saints.